Assalamu alaikum and welcome to SBP podcast. I'm your host Mobin Nasir and today we're discussing the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Code. It's a global initiative aiming to improve access to finance for women-owned or women-led businesses. The State Bank of Pakistan became a signatory earlier this year in February, and since then nearly 24 other institutions have also signed on. They hope and aim to not only improve access to finance for women's businesses, but also to help them grow. And to discuss what the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Code means, what it is, and what it could mean for Pakistan, I'm joined today by my three esteemed guests. On my left is Mr. Andrew McCartney. You are Senior Financial Sector Specialist at the Asian Development Bank. Next to him is Inez. You are the CEO of the Financial Alliance for Women. And on the extreme right, Mr. Abid, Qamar, the Director, Agricultural Credit and Financial Inclusion Department here at the Central Bank. Welcome to the podcast, all three of you. Inez, if I may start with you, as the CEO of the Financial Alliance for Women and as a lead for many global initiatives to support women entrepreneurs, what is the overall global impact and response that this initiative or this movement has received thus far?
So the WeFi Code that was signed on by Pakistan is being rolled out in more than 31 countries currently, with an additional 25 countries really looking also to sign on. And it's an extraordinary movement in a way, because what it's doing is there's a $1.7 trillion gap in terms of financing women entrepreneurs globally. So kind of on the demographic and firmographic side, women are starting businesses at greater rates than men across the globe. They're getting more educated actually than men, and so we're starting to see sophisticated businesses in fintech, biotech, and it's not just subsistence businesses anymore. And so there's a lot of momentum in the female economy that is not being picked up then by the financial services providers. So we have a big credit gap and financing gap. And what the code does is it actually asks banks and microfinance providers to sign on and commit both from the senior management level to introduce programs that support women entrepreneurs, as well as essentially report data to data aggregators. In this case, it's the central bank or the state bank, on the volumes of financing that are going to female entrepreneurs, and in that way building accountability and transparency in the system so that we will know exactly what the volumes are, and we can then determine where we need to go in order to increase those volumes. What kind of supports are needed? It's very important that it's not just the bank and the MFI's problem, it's an ecosystem issue where we need to be able to support women to actually start and grow businesses just like men are, to close that gender gap. So it's really catalysing a lot of innovation. For instance, in the United Kingdom, we've seen £2 million by one particular bank in the market, earmarked specifically, and announcing this, earmarked specifically for female entrepreneurs. We've also seen in the Dominican Republic, where we have a lot of informal businesses, like you have in Pakistan, an initiative that's cross-sector, which essentially has said, look, we'll reduce the cost of formalization. We want to bring more informal businesses into the tax net. We'll reduce that cost by offering a value addition to the entrepreneurs. So on one card, they can get health insurance for their employees and for themselves as business people. They can become formal. They can get a lot of additional products and services bundled onto this one card to incentivize them to formalize. And when they're formal, they can get a lot of access to finance, right? So there's a lot of new policy initiatives that are being put in place as well, not just momentum from the private sector, but this collaborative approach with the public sector to actually enable more entrepreneurs to start and grow their businesses.
So certainly something that requires an active, exuberant sort of response from all stakeholders within the system, and hopefully we can look forward to that given our experience from the launch and the sort of slew of banks and other institutions that have signed on in Pakistan. Andrew, if I can turn to you, the ADB, of course, has been working on a number of initiatives in Pakistan, but as the technical partner for the implementation of the WeFi Code, what role do you envisage for the organization?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the State Bank for all their support on this initiative. And from an Asian Development Bank perspective, we're very proud to be the technical partner with State Bank for Pakistan and the WeFi Code. Just a sort of broader context, this is one part of a large program of support that we've been providing to Pakistan really since 2022 around women inclusive finance. And this has been a nearly $500 million program that's involved policy reforms, involved credit lines, credit guarantees, grants, and technical assistance, all designed to support women and access to finance for women and closing the gender finance gap. So just to set the context on this. In terms of the specific support that we'll be providing and have been providing, I think it's in several areas. First of all, support for State Bank itself, for them to prepare for the reporting. So a lot of the code is around creating that transparency that Inez was just talking about. So supporting State Bank as the main data aggregator. Furthermore, this is in many ways the start of the journey. And it's fantastic. We've got 21 banks now. But the idea with the WeFi Code is that we extend this across the whole ecosystem. So we want other regulators, we want other public sector, private sector entities supporting. So again, here we see that we can support the State Bank and others in creating more members and broadening and deepening this WeFi Code initiative. Furthermore, obviously, part of the signing up to the WeFi Code has a set of responsibilities attached to it. It's not just about signing up. So every bank and entity that signs up has to make commitments and has to ultimately deliver action. So it's about doing something different to support women. And again, here we see kind of two levels of support. We see a minimum level of support for the market as a whole. So we'll be providing training program for all WeFi Code signatories so that they can develop what they need to, first of all, establish what their commitments are going to be, and also an action plan in terms of how they're going to achieve that. So that's a degree of capacity building for everyone. And same around building out the data and reporting side, which will be a challenge for a number of the institutions. Furthermore, for a select few pilot banks, what we call Bank A's, 3 to 4 maximum, what we want to do is also to create a demonstration effect by more in-depth support and technical assistance to really help them build their women banking businesses to the next level and show the rest of the market the business case for scaling up the women business.
So Abid, if I could take that over to you, of course the central bank has been working for many years now to improve women's financial inclusion and their access to finance. What drove the central bank to sign on to the WeFi Code, and what do we hope to accomplish from this partnership?
Yeah, thanks, Mobin. Joining the WeFinance Code was not a sudden reaction that since this was introduced and we have just jumped in. Actually, this is the culmination of a long journey, as you said, that we started this whole journey of financial inclusion more than 2 decades ago. And the objective was basically to bring in those segments of the society which have otherwise no access to the financial sector services. So if you look at like the past 10 years, so during this time period, we have introduced at least 3 rounds of national financial inclusion strategy. With the first The objective of these strategies was basically to improve access, usage of the financial services, the first two ones. And we had been lucky to have quite good progress over that. And then recently in January this year, we introduced the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, the third round of it. So all these strategies actually focused on improving the access to the financial sector for those segments of the society which were otherwise not being served by the banks or other financial institutions. So now this joining this WeFinance Code is basically the kind of a culmination of this whole journey, in a sense that earlier these financial services were limited to opening a bank account or using them for payment purposes, but most of the people were still like not having access to finance. So the objective was to increase access to finance for all the men and women. So now this actually introduction of this WeFinance Code by the World Bank and the other institutions, that provided us an opportune time to focus more on the gender-specific access to finance, which is specifically providing access to finance for the women. So that is, although in all our previous episodes, we had been focusing on the women also, and particularly when we introduced the Banking on Equality policy in 2021, that was particularly focused on improving the access to the financial sector for the women. I can share more details on that when you ask. So, but overall, this whole journey has been basically to improve financial inclusion, and now this joining this WeFinance Code will help us to take this aspect of improving access to finance, and particularly for women and women entrepreneurs, that will be supported and helped by this initiative.
So Inez, I think what Abid is alluding to is certain unique challenges when it comes to providing or improving access to finance when it comes to women. You've of course had a very global look at this whole challenge. So what are sort of some of the key issues that you see repeating across different countries, and what are some of the insights that you might have about Pakistan specifically?
Great question. So, I mean, globally, women self-report less financial literacy, right? So, what that plays out in the fact that they're less likely to borrow from a bank for their business. They're less likely, in other words, to be leveraged, and that's can be a problem if you can't really grow your business through your retained earnings. You really do have to get other sources of finance. So globally, this is an issue. It also plays out, for instance, in going into a bank without having a projected cash flow, and that's really not an option. You need to be able to demonstrate to a banker that you understand the finances. And then women tend to be less networked, and there is a correlation between the size of your network as a business person and your success. And so access to networking is very important. Access to timely and relevant information. If you want to start up a business, where do you go? What are the resources that are available? How do you learn? Women tend to be less, let's say, experienced in business. So these are kind of global trends. And that means that you need to really provide or enable them to have access to financial and business education, to networks, and to timely and relevant information. Now, if you look then at Pakistan in particular, there are certain cultural constraints. I suppose the most notable one would be mobility and the constraints on women needing to be, for instance, chaperoned if they're going to a bank branch. I mean, that's a real issue. Or if you want to be selling in the market, you are very limited in your opportunities to do that. So for instance, if you walk down the average street in a city like Lahore, what a woman has would be a beauty parlor and she's able to have women customers, but she can't have another kind of shop where she's got interface with men. And so those mobility constraints are significant. Having said that, there's a lot of women doing amazing businesses in Pakistan, and there tend to be in specific subsectors. So when we say a subsector, we would say, for instance, in the sewn goods manufacturing, so fashion, but there's lots of different kinds of manufacturing that goes on within that. So the kind of visible representation of that would be boutiques that sell to beautiful clothes to women and tailor-made and so on and so forth. A lot of talent, a lot of design, a lot of opportunity there. In the beauty subsector as well, very lucrative and profitable businesses, networking beauty parlors together, enabling them to access lower costs of inputs, giving them advice on how to grow, etc., and expand. And medicine, schools, there's lots of highly educated women in Pakistan that are now, and have been for many years, being successful doctors and educators and so on. So for the financial services providers, the opportunity is to identify these subsectors and figure out what they need in order to grow their businesses, because this needs to be not just access to finance, it needs to be access to these non-financial services. And as Andrew was referring to, this ecosystem approach, what we would like to see is a lot more than just the financial services providers involved. This requires universities, training institutes, incubators, accelerators. These are kind of startup, high-growth startup units that can be put in place and already exist, but we need more of them, not just in Pakistan, in every country. So this non-financial services ecosystem is important to cultivate, and the coalition that the State Bank is going to be leading is going to be integrating other forms, other kinds of providers, so that we really create an ecosystem that's enabling for women. And ultimately, it will of course enable men, because what we're looking for is equality, right? We're not looking for more advantage for women. What we're looking to do is to level the playing field so that women have the same access and opportunity.
So Andrew, and you talked about the ADB's role vis-a-vis the banks and the central banks, but I guess the obvious question is, what are the specific benefits that women entrepreneurs can look forward to with this initiative?
Sure. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we're not doing this for fun. At the end of the day, we've got a situation in Pakistan with one of the lowest women labor force participation rates in the world. So we've got a large proportion of our adult female population today either unemployed or underemployed. So ultimately, it's about creating jobs, creating livelihoods, and from an ADB economist perspective, it's about GDP growth. And certainly, a lot of the studies, including a UN study a couple of years ago, showed that by bringing women onto a more level playing field, we can get a 30% uplift in GDP just by bringing our women into a fair level playing field. Specifically in terms of the WeFi Code benefit, the situation you've got today is you've got a large number, I think the number was 164, roughly 1,000 women entrepreneurs. And you've also got many more thousands informal that are essentially hidden from view from a financial service perspective largely. So part of it's about bringing them, creating a voice, bringing them out, also supporting formalization. So ultimately we've got 90+% of women entrepreneurs in Pakistan, small, micro, informal businesses, lack of documentation, registration, and that naturally excludes them from a large part of the financial sector. So part of this ecosystem approach will also be to support greater levels of registration, helping them along the way to formalize their businesses. But also it's about creating an inclusive financial sector. So it's about giving them access to tailored products and services through the banks, the non-banks, that meet their needs, where today they may not. It's also about giving them access to non-financial services. And this is, again, something that Inez was just talking about. So by working with different ecosystem partners, whether it be incubation centers, training institutes, the idea is that we build up the capacity of the women so that they can grow their businesses. They can move from a subsistence level to a more high growth trajectory as an entrepreneur. I think the other aspect is just in terms of that we must never forget is that ultimately, if we're supporting women entrepreneurs, we're supporting households, we're supporting families. For every successful women entrepreneur, that money is going back into the household, supporting education, health of the family as a whole. So ultimately, this is something that's good for Pakistan, not just the women entrepreneur.
So Andrew, you've stressed a lot about the need for creating an ecosystem. I'd like to take that thought to you, Abid. Now, when you talk about creating a national coalition, what do you envision it doing, or how do you see it alleviating some of these issues that women face when trying to access financing for themselves or for their businesses?
Yeah, so first, as Inez mentioned and also Andrew mentioned about, like, it's not about access to finance is just one part of it, right? And we also have to work not only with the financial institutions, but the non-financial institutions as well, who are working for the uplift of the women and their role in the society. So as anchor for the WeFinance Code, the State Bank's responsibility will primarily be to create that coalition among all the financial institutions, development agencies, or other organizations which are playing their role. So in that respect, we have started this journey, and it has been very encouraging that we started with, of course, with the banks first. And as we launched our program, 20 banks joined us, and they committed to work for the promotion of this WeFinance Code. And also 20 banks and the Pakistan Banking Association, they also joined us for this purpose. So this is a very good beginning for us. But now we have to take it to the next level, where not only the rest of the banks or the other financial institutions, they joined us, but then we will be looking forward to the other stakeholders. For instance, like in terms as a regulator or the policy maker, the next big regulator is the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan. Since the whole concept of entrepreneurship, their registration process, starting the business, all these things start with the SECP. I think the next natural candidate for the WeFinance Code, in my view, will be SECP. So we will be engaging with them as well, and we will share with our experience with them, and we will try to motivate them to join this initiative as well. And then similarly, there will be other organizations. For example, like SMERA is there. So SMERA is working a lot about like how to turn the women into entrepreneurs. They support them by providing the kind of information that is needed. So another coalition partner could be SMERA. But again, as I said earlier, there will be other organizations as well which are working to promote women's role in the society. So this is what we have. And in this regard, of course, to create that coalition, we are working on a charter that we will, of course, be making public, so that shows us that what are our commitments and what we will be going to do in the future. So we will start with the charter. And then, as it was mentioned earlier, then creating this coalition, then we will be working on the different aspects. For example, like the data is very important in this whole concept. So to have that kind of data and to make it public, and of course to share it with our partners, that will be an important step for that. So we'll be working on the data side as well. And lastly, I think to me that's the most important part. What will be the action points? What we will be exactly doing? We need to identify, and then we of course identify and then implement those actions. So this is the kind of a plan that the State Bank has to take this cause of women entrepreneurship finance code forward.
So certainly a promising start given the number of signatories that we've had, but a long road ahead. Thank you each of you, Andrew, Inez, Abid, for sharing your thoughts with us in today's podcast. And to our audience, thank you very much for tuning in.